Simon says subscribe and click on the bell icon to receive notifications.
In this lesson, we're going to explore the Layers panel a little bit deeper. There is so much more than meets the eye than just naming layers and reordering layers and turning on and off visibility and locking. Photoshop gives you a ton of extra options as far as filtering out layers and then basically searching throughout your layers as well. So if we just review a little bit, we can see here we have our Layers panel. We have all of these layers here, and there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of different types of objects here, including images. We have a clipping mask, we have folders, we have shapes, we also have smart objects, we have adjustment layers, we have all kinds of different things here. Now, when you're working with very large documents and things that are very complex and sophisticated, it can get a little bit unruly. So when you're working with some of these tools within the Layers panel, you can see it's going to help us kind of work with all that kind of unruliness. So let's go ahead and just start up over here on the top here. You'll notice that there's this drop down. And this is going to allow us to decide how we want to filter. And notice here it says kind. Well, think about kind more like type, so kind of different parameters, different properties. Well, you'll notice here when I choose kind and then I change this, all those icons over there disappear because those icons relate to the different kinds of things that we may want to filter by. So essentially, this is all about filtering. So I want to see certain things, I want to see other things another time. So you can see here kind. What are my kinds? Well, my kind is in this case, only show me for pixel layers. Essentially, we're talking about images. Here you can see here, we're looking at adjustment layers. Wait for it to pop up there. And look at this, just for text. This is going to be for shapes. And this is going to be for smart objects. So very simply, if all I want to see is just my images, because that's what I'm working on right at that moment, and my Layers panel is getting a little bit too big, I can say, hey, listen, you know what? Only show me my images. Great, so all three of these are just images. That's fantastic. Click on it again, and it's going to turn off that particular filter. Let's go over to here to an adjustment layer. Notice I have an adjustment layer right there. I only want to mess with that, or all of my other adjustment layers that might be available at that time, I can just go ahead and filter it out that way. Okay, very simple, right? Really, really nice. Simple, but very powerful. Let's go over here for type. Great, now I can see just my type options. Really, really neat. Shapes, bam, just a shape. That's a shape that I drew, the shape right there. Cool, now when I click on it, cool. Now I just see that one, that's wonderful. Turn that off again, okay? And then you can see here, also, finally, is the smart object one, because many times you'll be working with smart objects and you'll only want to see those smart objects. Maybe you want to turn off the smart object. Okay, great. And you can very easily turn that on and off to make that visible and invisible that only your smart objects will show. Very cool. All right, now let's go over to here to this little drop down, and then maybe you're just looking for a word, right? So you can see here, I've got lots and lots of names for my layers, and hopefully you are naming your layers. I'm going to click on that, and very simply, I'm just going to go ahead and type out flame. And look at that, pops right up. Get rid of that. How about banner? Oh, look at that. Even the first couple letters pops right up. Okay, really slick, and I think very intuitive. Let's click on the drop down here. And how about for different effects? Well, you know what? I'm looking through all these and I've got like 7 different effects. So I want to look for a particular effect for a particular layer. So I click on that and you're going to see here, it automatically comes over here to bevel and emboss, but I'm really only looking for ones that have drop shadow. Look at that. Bam, shows right up. I'm only looking for ones that have outer glow. It's going to show up just the same, just like that. Oh, wait, you know what? I'm going to go back to inner shadow and guess what? There is no layers matched that filter. Okay, so really cool, very slick, very easy to execute. Okay, let's go ahead and just remove that filter. And how do I remove that now? Well, I'm going to come back over to here and just go ahead and flip that switch, and now everybody comes back. Really, really neat. I turn that back on, and you know what? Now I'm going to go back over to this little drop down, remove that, and I'm going to go over here to, let's say, color. Well, what does color have to do with? Color is not what you think it is. Color refers to the color of the layer, not the color that's on this shape, for example. Okay, so let me go ahead. I'm going to go back to kind, so just kind of reset everything. And I'm going to make, let's just say, this banner a particular color. Well, if I right click on it, you're going to see that I have all these colors down here, right? And I can make it whatever color I want. That's just how I like to organize things. We're going to make this one yellow. Great. That's yellow. And then you know what? This is also going to be yellow. And you know what? So is this. So hopefully you see a pattern here that, you know what? Maybe it's all my images are going to be a certain color, right? So I'll go ahead and do this one as well. All right. And then I'll make my type be a different color. So I right click on that. And then I'm going to make that red. Okay. Very cool. And then, okay, let's just keep going with that theme here one more time. Let's go ahead and make this violet for my shapes. Cool. So now when I come over to here and then I say color, you're going to see that all of those colors that you just saw right there, I will now be able to say, hey, listen, you know what? Only show me the yellow layers. Cool. Because that's how I like to organize things. I am very motivated and driven, and this is how I think in terms of colors. So what would I do? I would add on colors to my layers, and then later on, I would filter by those colors. Brilliant. Makes it so nice and easy. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and say none, and then let's go ahead and turn off my filter. Everybody comes right back. Okay, very cool. Now let's go ahead and turn it back on, and then go right back to kind. That's kind of your default state. It's kind of like your home. In case nothing's showing, it's like, oh, wait a second, because I have a filter on there, even inadvertently. So just make sure you come back to kind, and then make sure that nothing is then filtered out. Okay? Now, if you take a look at some of these other ones, we're not going to look at all of them here, but just notice here you can look at it only ones that are grouped. Maybe you're looking at artboards. Okay, you can go ahead and click on artboard, and then it's going to show all the artboards just like that. We're not working with artboards right here, but we did in a previous exercise. You can filter by those. And then one that we just did actually was smart object, and you can see how there's different variants on the smart objects, right? You can see filter for smart objects linked in the library, filter for smart objects linked locally, right? Things like that. It's a little bit beyond the scope of this class, but just know that if you have all the options right here. It is pretty brilliant. All right, so you're going to want to practice this, with this exercise certainly, but anything that you have that's starting to get very complex, then you're going to want to really start to control all of the content, what you see, what you don't see, based off of all these variables that we discussed. In this lesson, we're going to talk about layer comps or layer compositions. So there's going to be times when you're going to want to have a variety of different versions to show your clients, to show your boss, to show yourself, but you don't want to have to create and recreate new documents. So layer comps allow you to have one document, but several different versions. Now, you can also see those versions anytime you want, and you can export those versions as separate PDFs and also PSDs and also a variety of different other file formats. Okay, so it's a really, really slick tool that's going to allow us to really save time, be productive, and be creative, and also be very experimental at the same time. So the first thing we have to do is bring up the Layer Comps panel. So if we go over here to Window, we're going to come down here in alphabetical order. You can see here is Layer Comps, right above Layers. So I'm going to bring this over here, and you're going to see here that I have no layer comps at this point. So typically what you want to do is start off by creating just sort of a baseline of what you are working with, right? That you might want to come back to. Or it could just be, version A, and then you're going to have version B, version C, version D, and that is going to just fill in and populate this whole layer comps panel. All right, so currently the way that our layers are, that is what essentially was going to be frozen as a layer comp. Okay, so that's how it works. These two work together. Whatever is shown here will then become sort of a freeze frame for whatever is on the screen will then become a layer comp. So we're going to do maybe 4 of these. All right, so let's just go ahead now and create our first layer comp. Well, you'll notice here's a little plus sign. Create new layer comp. I click on that, and very simply just going to ask me, well, what do you want to call this? Right, and I'm just going to call this, I'll just call this version 1. Why not? Okay, but I might want to be more kind of specific about this. I'll just say version 1 red overlay, right? Something like that, right? Bam, okay, and then I'll just call it something else for something else, right? So bam, I have that there. But I also want to say, okay, what am I looking at here? Visibility, position, appearance. Yep, I actually like to have all of them chosen just in case. That's great. Now I click on that. Fantastic, and I'm good to go. But now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to kind of change things a little bit and then do a sort of freeze pane around that, whatever that next thing I'm going to do is. Okay, so let's just try something a little bit different. Okay, I'm going to give you a little taste of something called blend modes so we can see kind of how these things might work together. All right, so if you see here this clipping mask, on the top of my layers panel, there is this blend mode of pass through. Well, I'm going to go ahead and just experiment with some of these other ones that are here. Let's go over here to like difference, some of these other ones, right? See what they can kind of do there. Okay, that's kind of a neat one. All right, and then okay, maybe that's kind of a one that I'm going to choose. All right, now I'm going to make a new layer comp based off of what I have here. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and just click on that. I'm going to make a new layer comp, and then let's just try to remember what we did there. This is going to be version 2 pin light, and I'll know what that means, and all of these are still selected. That's great. I click OK, and then bam, I'm pretty happy with that. So now I have 2 of these. All right, let's go ahead and do 2 more, and we'll just again experiment with what these blend modes are. So just a little sidebar. A blend mode just allows us to see different layers blending together, looking at their color, looking at their light, right? Looking at kind of their kind of composite differences potentially, or their composite samenesses, okay? How they all kind of come together. And there's a whole variety of these things available to us. Okay, so let's go ahead and maybe try a different one. So my peppers this time, I'm just gonna go ahead and just try that to look a little bit different. Okay, as you can see, as I mouse over it, I'm getting a little bit of a different view here. Okay, so I'll keep this one at exclusion. And then for this clipping mask group, I'm going to bring that back to where it was before, with pass through. Okay, so again, you can see the kind of different things I can do here. Okay, well, I kind of like that one. Let's do divide. All right, fantastic. So this time I'm going to do another version. Click on the plus sign. All right, and I'm going to say version 3. And then this time it's going to be divide peppers. All right, I'll know what that means. That's fantastic. Now, let's just see kind of what I've done so far. Okay, because I've got these 3, which is really awesome. And I kind of missed that first one. What that look like? My boss comes knocking on the door and says, hey, can you show me what you're working on? Oh yeah, no problem. Bam, I come right to this one. And then when I click on it, you see, I'm right there. I click on this right there and bam, I'm right there. I click on that and bam, I'm right there. Okay, so very, very cool. I can very, very easily go back to these. No problem. Okay, so now let's go ahead and just try maybe one more. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and just do one that has no visibility of my little red thing here, right? So I have this little red shape there. So I'm just going to just click on that, and you can see that's going to look a little bit different. And then I'm just going to go ahead and just do the plus sign here. And this is going to be version 4. And then it's the same thing, right? Where I have the divide peppers, no shape overlay. Okay, cool. So I'll know what that means. That's great. I click OK. And now I have a 4th one. So again, I can go to here, to here, to here, to here. And then you know what? I'm looking at this one here. And you know what? I kind of like that I have this one as it is, but you know what? I wouldn't mind actually having the banner down below for this. So remember, one of the things that I chose, that was the position. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do a new one, but I'm going to override this current one. All right, so while this is still selected, I'm going to come over to here, and I'm just going to drag this down, so it's just going to be way in the bottom here. Okay, kind of like that. That's cool, you know, and then maybe I'll play around with the opacity, something like that, right? But I'm just going to kind of just show you how we can then do something a little bit different. Now, let's take a look at some of our options down below here. We've already seen this one, and that's for creating a new layer comp. This is for deleting it. And if you look over to here, you can see that there's this update layer comp, right? So when I click on that, right, that now, it basically inherits what I've done to make it so this is now the new version 3, right? How cool is that? All right, so loving that. So now I've got this one, and notice how it just pops right back up. I've got this one, and then Look what version 3 is going to look like now. It just jumps back down over there. All right, but now I'm realizing, you know what, it might be kind of cool to have version 3, to have the text move up there, right? It's like, yeah, of course, right? So no problem. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So I'm going to go ahead and select the layer. Okay, and then let's go ahead and move that up. And that's going to look a lot better. And you can guess what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to go ahead and do a little swoosh right there to update the layer comp. Okay, now the rest of these are a little bit more nuanced, and we're going to kind of skip over these. It's a little bit beyond the scope of, I think, what we need at this stage, but they're a little bit more nuanced in terms of what you would like to update, right? It's only updating for smart objects, only updating for our different layer effects, right? Only updating for different positions, right? That kind of thing. I'm going to be doing basically layer comps for all of them, and then I basically want all the changes to then be reflected. All right, so I'm super happy with this, and I've got 4 of them all right here, and I need to show this to my client. I need to show all of these to my client. So what am I going to do now? Well, if I go over to here to my file menu, you're going to see that there's this export option, and you're going to see way down in the middle is this layer comps to files and then layer comps to PDF. All right, so depending on what you would like to show and what file format you want to choose. All right, so let's just go ahead and do PDF at first. And you're going to see here, it just asks me, okay, well, where do you want to put them? And I will go ahead and put that inside of our class folder here. That's great. And get that confirmation. And let's go ahead and put that into a folder. Layer comps. I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. All right, so layer comps for peppers. Okay, and now do I want to do selected layer comps only? Then it would only just do like version 4 in this case. Nope, that's not the case. And if I am going to be doing a slideshow of some kind, it's going to be advancing every 5 seconds, something like that. I'm not going to be doing that, so I'm just going to, doesn't really matter at this point. And then I'm going to click on Run. So remember, this is going to be a PDF. Right, so when I click on Run, it's just going to make 4 separate PDFs for me. And you're going to see this crazy little algorithm is going to be going and going and going, magically taking everything there, churning it out, making it be exactly what I have for each of these individually 4 layer comps. Bam, and I get this little message here from the script saying layer comps to PDF was successful. Beautiful. I click OK. And now I'll go ahead and take us to our folder. Okay, and then here we are inside the layer comps folder, and guess what? There it is. Okay, and then bam, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4. Okay, and all merging that together into one PDF. Okay, so you can see I have these 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, in the next exercise, we're going to make them into 4 separate files. Okay, so let's go ahead and now do that same thing, but as files. So here we go. File, export, and then we're going to say export layer comps to files in this case. And we'll go ahead and just make sure that it's the same folder where it's going. Beautiful, love that. Okay, and then the prefix for each of the individual ones, going to just call it hot peppers, and I'll just say LC for layer comps. That's great. And then down here you have your file type. Well, what do I want to export this as? If you want to continue editing it and you want to share with people or whatever it is, you want more flexibility, of course you would do a Photoshop file. If you are looking for another option for doing PDF, you can do that. If you want to have them as static and just have them flattened, you would choose JPEG, PNG 24. You will know what there is to do when the time comes, but just know what your options are. Okay, very good. So I'm just going to choose JPEG for right now. And then notice when I choose JPEG, I get the JPEG options. I'm going to bring this up to high quality. That's wonderful. And I'm super happy with that. I'm going to click Run. And it's going to pretty much run through that same engine as it did before. But this time we're going to have separate files as opposed to what we had before, which is going to be one PDF with those separate 4 pages in there. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And I'll come back to where I was just a minute ago. Come to there. And now there they are, all separate. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And there's my little prefix there. Absolutely amazing. This is just such a huge time saver. It's for productivity, for creativity, for collaboration, for everything. It is just fantastic. So that's layer comps, really. So use this, abuse it, have fun with it, and don't forget to practice. Really put this into use. You can use these files, but certainly feel free to use your own. And we'll see you in the next lesson.
If you're not a subscriber, click down below to subscribe so you get notified about similar videos we upload. To see the full course that this video came from, click over there. And click over there to see more videos from Simon Says It.